I was unable to locate my place card during the celebration of the inauguration of the new president. Johnson from that apartment had smirked and come over to me as I was hanging around in trouble.
"Hey, what are you looking for?" Although I was reluctant to tell Johnson, I said I can't find my seat. Johnson then indicated the foot of the chair that had the luggage next to the wall. My place card was flung down there, seemingly discarded. "The luggage area used your chair. A high school graduate has no seat. That is the purpose of this." Johnson had placed the seating chart beneath the chair, piled some unknown luggage on top, and purposefully moved the chair that was meant to be mine to the edge. "There is a person in the way who is not sitting down. Now leave." I choose to simply pay attention to what Johnson had to say. "After that, I'm heading out. However, it's none of my business if you later get into problems." The chairman then showed up and inquired, "Where is the president's son?" "I'm Alex Miller, and I'm 30 years old. I work for Smith Electronics, a significant electronics manufacturer in the hotel division. As the name implies, the hotel division is in charge of the electrical equipment used in lodging facilities. This entails launching new items, swapping out old ones, or preserving ones that have been there for a while. Although it's a popular department, it offers more than just consumer electronic sales. Our division head was transferred overseas one day, and a new boss who had previously served as a subsidiary sales director replaced him. Johnson, the new department head, had a reputation for being an exceptional salesman. His visit was anticipated by the hotel division team. "I'm depending on you all starting now. Let's boost sales, surpass other manufacturers by a wide margin, and dominate the hotel sector with me at the helm. I want everyone to give it their all." We had a really positive welcoming speech from the new department head. "All right, let's do this." I felt inspired. That was just the beginning, though. As the new sales director, Johnson's first action was to run a background check on the staff. Examine were not only sales performance, but also family structure, work history, and educational background. Johnson provided the following explanation, however it was unclear what the goal was. "By understanding what kind of person each employee is, we can find a sales style that suits them the best. In this way, each person's performance improves, and so does the department's overall performance." The previous director did pay close attention to the employees' characters and evaluated them accordingly, but never went as far as to scrutinize prospective employees like that. It seems the approach varies from person to person. Johnson carefully talked to each employee, discussing their responsibilities and various strategies, as he said he would. Then it was finally my turn for the interview. When Johnson called me, I responded to the other employees' words of encouragement with a clenched fist and headed to the director's office. I knocked on the door of the director's office 3 times and entered after hearing "come in." It felt like I was taking a job interview, which made me nervous. This feels nostalgic, but I wish I didn't have to go through this again. I was both excited and anxious as I entered the director's office and waited for Johnson to speak. He looked me up and down from his seat and suddenly asked, "You have high school as your last education. Is this true?" Due to certain circumstances, it's true that I only graduated from high school. I had no intention of hiding it, nor could I lie about it. After I honestly admitted it, Johnson sighed heavily and said, "How did someone with just a high school education get into this company?" As if it was a huge disappointment. "I don't need a bottom-rung man like a high school grad as you and my team. Remember, if you mess up, you're out of here immediately," he declared. Although I was shocked by Johnson's declaration, I never thought it would go beyond that. I figured as long as I kept up my sales performance, there wouldn't be any complaints. After all, that was the only way I could have. Being a high school grad is an unchangeable fact, but it had never been a problem before, so I continued working as usual. But it seemed naive thinking. "Miller, what's going on here? Is there a problem?" "Is there a problem, you ask?" Johnson slammed the documents he was holding onto the desk loudly. What's with the sales at this lakeside hotel you're managing? So that's what this is about.
Lakeside Hotel was mainly catering to budget inbound tourists from abroad. As you well knew, due to the global situation, its financial health deteriorated, leading to a temporary closure until a new owner took over and it could resume operations. Even after reopening, there wasn't enough budget to upgrade the electronics, so it's barely managing to continue business with minimal maintenance and essential replacements. However, with the recent revival of inbound tourism, the business has been gradually improving, and it was expected to return to its former state soon. I explained this to Johnson, but he wouldn't accept it, scolding me as if it was my fault. Then he declared, "Stop making excuses. This is why I hate dealing with bottom-of-the-barrel high school grads. Listen, if you can't recover Lakeside Hotel's figures by the end of this month, you're paying a fine." Our company did not have such a fine system. Some colleagues tried to intervene saying so, but Johnson wouldn't hear of it. "We elite college graduates like me and you guys might not need it, but someone hopeless like Miller needs this kind of discipline," he emphasized again to me. "Got it? By the end of this month, make sure you recover those numbers." In the end, the situation didn't improve immediately, and I actually had 10% of my salary taken as a fine that month on top of not receiving my sales allowance. According to Johnson, an employee who made no effort in sales didn't deserve a sales allowance. "Listen, this is the new policy for this department," he said. "Those who aren't serious about their work will continuously receive this kind of tough love, especially for those too dumb to understand. We be straight." That's absurd, I thought. But Johnson said this while staring straight at me. Fortunately, Johnson's love whip towards me ended with that one time. The reason was that my performance wasn't bad enough to warrant a fine. I was already among the top performers in the hotel division, and fortunately, Lakeside Hotel finally started recovering, leaving Johnson with no angle to criticize. I decided to be extra careful and prudent in my work, to avoid giving Johnson any further reason to target me. Though Johnson looked at me with displeasure, he couldn't do anything if I didn't make any mistakes. If he did, he'd have to start finding the elite college graduates he praises as well. Since then, Johnson hasn't been able to do anything to me. Still, the sneering remarks continued, and the high school grad comments didn't decrease. But if I treated it like background music, it would gradually start to mind it less. Humans really can adapt to anything. Just when I had managed to settle in my job, there was a change in our company's presidency. The current president stepped down to become chairman, and his son, the executive director, took over as president. Tomorrow is an important day. Let's all do our best to make the celebration for the new president memorable, Johnson announced to his subordinates with a broad smile. Today, the company was taking a full day off. There was a party for the new president's inauguration at a large hotel ballroom, inviting all employees. Employees left work looking forward to tomorrow. The party started at noon. Each department had tables set up in the rented venue. My department, the hotel division, was located in the middle toward the right end from the stage. I checked the seating chart and headed toward the hotel division's table. But something was off. I couldn't find my place card. After making a full round, I noticed that everyone else's name, including Department Head Johnson's, was there, except for mine. That's strange, I thought. But my colleagues already seated could only say they hadn't noticed my name, having sat down at their assigned spots. That's possible. As I was wandering around confused, Johnson came over with a grin, approaching me. "Hey, what are you looking for?" I didn't want to say it to Johnson, but I had no choice but to admit I can't find my seat. Johnson then pointed to the foot of a chair used for storing luggage at the edge of the room. There, my place card was discarded as if it was trash. "Your chair was used for the luggage area. No seat for a high school grad." So that's what this is about. Johnson had deliberately moved the chair I was supposed to sit in to the side of the wall, piled some unidentifiable luggage on it, and placed a seating chart under the chair, all to exclude me from the grand seat at the new president's inauguration party. Someone without a seat wandering around is just in the way. "Get away now," Johnson said with a pleased laugh. What a boring thing to do. Honestly, I was more shocked by the childishness of it all than angry. but I decided to just listen to what Johnson said.
Then I'm leaving. But if you run into trouble later, it's none of my business.
What? Our company won't be troubled in the slightest by the absence of a lowly high school grad like you. Just disappear from the company while you're at it.
I got it. Please don't forget those words.
With that, I left the party venue. When the party started, it turned into a bit of a commotion. I'll let Johnson handle the rest. Thinking that, I took a taxi home from in front of the hotel. When I got home, I took my smartphone out of my bag. I had turned it off when I left the hotel and got into the taxi.
About 30 minutes had passed since then. Let's see what's happening.
As soon as I turned on my smartphone, it immediately started blinking blue, indicating several messages and voicemails were waiting. Just as I swiped the screen to check the messages, the phone rang,
and I accidentally answered it. Whether it was good or bad timing, it was Johnson on the line.
"Hello, Alex. It's me, Johnson, your department head. Thank goodness you finally answered. Please come back to the venue right now."
Johnson sounded almost in tears as he spoke.
"What could possibly be the matter? I left because you told me to."
"Don't say that. Just come back. It'll be a disaster if you don't."
"I don't care about that. I was just following your orders, sir," I responded coldly. "I apologize. Please, I'm begging you. Come back. If not, it might be the end for me. Please."
The latter part was said through sobs and sniffles, but it was no concern of mine.
"I don't care. That's why I told you, whatever happens, it's not my problem." "Don't say that." Johnson explained that right after I left, the party started, and the chairman noticed a vacant seat in the hotel division and asked,
"Where is the president's son?"
"I had no idea you were the president's son and the chairman's grandson. Your name was different, and nobody told me anything about it. If I had known, I wouldn't have said those things. Please come back. I'm begging you. Please."
Over the phone, Johnson repeated the same plea over and over.
"Anyway," I said, "I'll tell everyone I left the party venue on Department Head Johnson's orders. Goodbye."
I said it mercilessly and turned off my phone again. Now what will happen? Eventually, a car came from the venue to take me back. It wasn't because Johnson asked me to. It was because if I didn't go back, my very character would be called into question. Upon returning to the venue, I was immediately escorted to my seat. This time it wasn't my seat in the hotel division, but my new seat prepared on the podium. As I took my seat, the host introduced me. "Now let me introduce you to the son of our new president, Alex. A big round of applause, please."
I was greeted with thunderous applause and took a seat next to my father, the new president, Tom Smith.
My grandfather, now the chairman, was also sitting nearby.
The host briefly introduced my background and announced that the hotel division of Smith Electronics would become an independent subsidiary, with me as its president.
A murmur rose from the audience. Prompted by the host, I was set to give a greeting. I moved in front of the microphone and bowed to the audience. "I'm Alex Miller. For reasons, I've been going by the name Miller.
But as I assume the position of president at Smith Hotel Management, a subsidiary, I'll be returned to my real name, Alex Smith."
I'm looking forward to working with all of you. There seemed to be a bit of confusion among some in the venue, but it was quickly filled with loud applause. Johnson was nowhere to be seen. But then again, he probably didn't have the guts to stay in the venue after that. This left 2 empty seats at the hotel division's table. But since the division will soon be phased out, I didn't see it as a major issue. In truth, I've been going by Miller at the company. But my real name is Smith. It's the same surname as my grandfather, the chairman, and my father, the new president, because we are family. This has to do with the fact that I'm a high school graduate. When I was about to graduate from high school, I fell ill and had to be hospitalized for a long time. I had already decided on a university, but due to needing hospitalization for more than half a year, I reluctantly had to give up my admission. The hospital had a classroom for long-term hospitalized children, but I often couldn't attend due to my condition. Then I had to be tutored remotely. But with treatment and days when I was too ill to do anything but sleep, my studies didn't progress as I had hoped. Still, I loved studying and didn't want my illness to stop me, so I made as much effort as I could. As a result, I obtained my high school diploma and was able to take the college entrance exams again. And then, after I had been accepted into college, unbelievably, my illness recurred, and I had to give up on going to college once again. I became dispirited, losing the will to study and even becoming passive about my treatment. That's when my mother's acquaintance suggested that perhaps it was my name that was bringing me bad luck. Though skeptical, my mother was desperate for anything that might help. After consulting with a priest, we were told about a tradition still found in various parts of the world of giving children unflattering names to protect them from malevolent forces. Names related to refuse, animals, or even vulgar terms were used to deceive malevolent spirits into thinking the child was not worth taking. Once the child reached an age where they could stand up to these forces, they would be given their proper name or called by their real name. Though such practices have become less common in medically advanced America, they persist in areas with low child survival rates. America used to be like that too. Perhaps they use false names to protect children from the clutches of evil. If you're feeling that down, why not use a pseudonym until you feel somewhat better? That's what I was told. It's unclear if the name is really to blame, but after it happens twice, it's natural to become anxious about various things. It seems like a good idea to try changing things up to improve your spirits. Of course, I couldn't take on a name that was distasteful, but it was suggested that I try using my mother's maiden name for the time being. So outwardly, I began introducing myself as Miller. My mother even asked the hospital to note both Miller and Smith on my medical records. It seems the hospital wasn't too pleased at first, but after my mother insisted, they reluctantly agreed to cooperate. At first, I honestly thought, how can anyone believe in such silly superstitions? However, human emotions are a curious thing. Seeing my mother smile and assure me that everything would definitely be okay and that I would get better gradually made me feel like maybe things would indeed turn out fine. Perhaps it was because I embraced that mindset and relaxed, focusing positively on my treatment, that, surprisingly, I was able to regain my health in no time at all. My mother was overjoyed, convinced that changing the surname had made all the difference, though the true reason for my recovery remains unknown. But since my mother was happy and said so, I figured it wouldn't hurt to keep it that way for a while. So from then on, I continued to introduce myself as Miller in public. I gave up on going to college, but instead I decided to continue studying with a certain organization. It was an organization similar to what you might call a business workshop. And after my dad found out I was studying economics on my own, he introduced me to it, suggesting I should check it out. There, I studied various things related to company management, like economics, business administration, and finance. I also learned languages, picking up English, German, Chinese, among others. And now I've joined my grandfather's company, keeping the fact that I'm his grandson a secret. This was when I was 22, the same age as recent college graduates. Actually, it was my idea to propose a launch of the hotel division. Both my grandfather and father agreed it was a good idea and decided to create the new department at the same time I joined the company, aiming to eventually spin off this department into a subsidiary. I worked hard to build it up. Thanks to being recognized for our efforts here and there, I finally achieved my goal. After the party, I made a point to inquire about Johnson's fate. When the chairman, my grandfather, had his secretary ask why I wasn't at my seat, Johnson smoothly replied,
It's the new CEO's welcome party. After all, I took this opportunity to put her department in proper order. A high school graduate is hardly necessary for the shining success of Smith Electronics.
That's what he reportedly answered.
Upon learning that I was the person he had referred to, my grandfather, the chairman, personally came to inquire about the president's son's whereabouts. At that point, Johnson finally realized I was his son and, in a panic, reportedly rushed to call me. Seeing Johnson desperately asking me to come back in the lobby, my grandfather's secretary realized we wouldn't make it in time for the new company's launch speech and sent a car to pick me up. The secretary told Johnson that we would have a detailed discussion another day and sent him on his way. 2 days after the party, in front of my grandfather, father, myself, 3 generations, Johnson explained why he did what he did. According to Johnson, his father was a high school graduate who hardly worked, drank all day, and when upset would become violent towards his wife and children. Having grown up in such an environment led Johnson to harbor hatred towards high school graduates, wanting to exclude them. I felt sorry for him, considering the kind of family environment he had. However, just because someone's a high school graduate, looking down on and trying to oust them is not something a leader should do. When my grandfather and father demanded an explanation of Johnson's actions, I honestly recounted everything. There was no need to defend him, nor did I intend to. It was then revealed that Johnson had embezzled the 10% of my salary he claimed as a fine and my sales allowance. He pressured the accounting staff to create a separate payroll slip for me, facilitating this embezzlement. Although the amount was small, it constituted embezzlement. An investigation into the subsidiary where Johnson worked before coming to headquarters fortunately found no similar misconduct, likely due to the absence of high school graduates among his subordinates there. As a result, the co-accounting employee faced a 3-month pay cut and was required to submit a letter of reflection while Johnson was demoted and transferred to a factory in a rural area. There are many high school graduate employees in the regional factories whom Johnson despises. The world is filled with people from various backgrounds, all working hard and living their lives. Whether someone has a high school diploma, a college degree, a graduate school degree, is a regular employee, or a part-timer, everyone contributes. The decision was made hoping Johnson would come to understand this by working alongside those he looked down upon. However, unable to tolerate working with those he had demeaned, Johnson ultimately resigned. At that time, hearing Johnson's story, I fully understood that he had his own struggles, worked hard, graduated from a top university, and joined our company, which is considered a top-tier enterprise. And I also understood that he worked tirelessly to climb up to the position of department head.
But that doesn't excuse his disdain for and unfair treatment of high school graduates.
This time, the target was me. An unusual circumstance given my position as the president's son, and the matter was resolved relatively mildly. Had it been another employee, and had Johnson succeeded in his plan, he might have continued his wrongful actions. Embezzling salary could have escalated, potentially causing significant financial damage to the company. While I empathize with Johnson's circumstances, I cannot condone his actions. Everyone has their struggles. Hopefully, he will realize this in his new environment. Following the announcement of the new company at Smith Electronics' President Transition Party, news about the establishment spread. Of course, my journey to becoming the company's CEO will be a part of that narrative. Johnson might see this news somewhere, announcing my position as president of the newly established company. As Alex Smith, it was a significant moment. I told my mother that I would revert to my original name once the hotel division became independent. Still, my mother was very worried, repeatedly asking if it was really okay to let me return. But I'm no longer a child. I'm a full-fledged adult. Even if something bad were to happen, I won't just be silently taken away. I can fight for myself.
Mom, think about it. I'm turning 30.
Sure, I've been seriously ill twice, and there's no guarantee I won't get sick again. But isn't that true for everyone? After I explained this to her, I somehow managed to convince her. Though I didn't attend college, the time I would have spent there was filled with learning and networking in different ways. These experiences form the foundation upon which I'll build and grow the new company. Education is important, but there are many who, for various reasons, couldn't follow that path. I hope our company can be a place for those who have gained valuable experiences outside of formal education. It's not just about increasing sales and growing the company. It's about nurturing a diverse workforce. This is my goal. As I embark on this journey, I bid farewell to the name Miller, which protected me, and embrace my true identity, Alex Smith, determined to achieve my objectives.
My name is Daniel Rios.
My name is Daniel Rios, and 3 months ago, I thought I understood the rules of survival in the corporate world. Keep your head down, follow orders, and never outshine your boss. For 4 years, I worked in a mid-sized investment firm called Thornwell and Price, a place where ambition was currency and secrets were traded more than stocks. I wasn't the flashiest guy in the room, but I got things done.
Quietly. Cleanly.
I didn't come from much. Grew up in the South Side, the kind of place where people age faster than their years and dreams didn't always survive past high school. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. My dad? Gone by the time I was 8. I clawed my way into college, took on a mountain of debt, and landed this job thinking I'd finally made it out. At Thornwell and Price, I reported directly to a man named Carson Drake, the kind of boss who spoke with a permanent smirk and treated everyone like they were disposable, except the clients. With them, he turned into this greasy, overpolished salesman who laughed too loudly at unfunny jokes and made promises that never had to be kept. He liked to remind me I was lucky to be here, especially during late nights when I was stuck fixing his reports or digging him out of some accounting mess he refused to take responsibility for. I never said a word. Not when he took credit for my work. Not when he joked about how guys like me should be grateful just to be in the building. I needed the paycheck. I needed the health insurance. For the most part, I figured if I played the long game, I'd get my shot. That shot came in the form of a promotion. At least that's what I thought. A few days before it all went to hell, Carson invited me out to a bar downtown. "Celebrate your hard work," he said. "Just a small group. Casual. Dress nice, Rios. You're moving up." That should have been my first red flag. But I went. I even ironed the shirt for it. The bar was upscale but tucked away. A dim-lit spot with velvet booths and a piano player in the corner who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. When I arrived, Carson was already seated in the VIP area, sipping something dark with 2 guys I'd never seen before. They weren't dressed like clients. They didn't talk like clients either. One of them had a scar from his temple to his jaw, and the other kept fiddling with a silver ring on his pinky, scanning the room like he was expecting trouble. Carson waved me over with that damn smirk of his. "Rios, my guy, come, sit." I hesitated, just for a second. Something about the vibe felt off, but I sat down. I shouldn't have. The bar owner walked past our table then, an older man with tired eyes and a crooked nose that looked like it had been broken more than once. He glanced at the 2 strangers, then at me. For a second, I thought he was going to say something. Instead, he just muttered under his breath as he passed by, "You boys don't belong here. Your lives are in danger." I thought I misheard him. But I didn't. And that night, everything changed. I watched the bar owner disappear behind the kitchen doors, his warning still rattling around in my head like a pinball. Your lives are in danger. What did he mean? Was he just being dramatic, or was there something about these 2 silent men next to Carson that I was missing? Carson didn't seem fazed. In fact, he was glowing with smug satisfaction. He raised his glass toward me and said, "To Daniel Rios, the rising star of Thornwell and Price, the man who saved my ass during that quarterly report disaster." The 2 men with him didn't toast. They just stared. I forced a smile and took a sip, though I couldn't taste anything but the adrenaline creeping up my throat. My fingers tapped nervously against my glass, and I tried to focus on the conversation. But it wasn't a conversation, it was a setup. "You ever hear of Lupo and Ricci?" Carson asked me casually like he was testing me. "No," I answered, shaking my head.
Should I have?
He chuckled. Let's just say they helped me take care of things. Off the record. Lupo, the guy with the scar, grinned, revealing a gold molar. Ricci, still fidgeting with that pinky ring, didn't smile. He just stared me down like he was reading my obituary in advance. I tried to stand. Actually, Carson, I've got an early day tomorrow. Sit, he snapped, the smirk vanishing. Don't be rude. That was the moment the tone changed. Whatever illusion of friendliness existed before had just evaporated. The air grew heavier, like it was soaked in gasoline, waiting for a spark. I brought you here tonight, Carson said, leaning in, because you've been poking around places you shouldn't. Audits, emails, financial discrepancies. You think I don't notice when one of my underlings starts sniffing like a dog looking for bones?
My blood ran cold. He wasn't wrong.
2 weeks ago, I stumbled across a massive discrepancy in the offshore accounts, funds moving between shell companies. The names didn't match. The amounts were too perfect, too clean. I flagged it, copied the files onto a USB, and told myself I'd confront Carson after I understood the full picture. But I underestimated just how closely he was watching me.
I've got eyes everywhere, Rios, he said. You think those IT guys are loyal to you? You think the partners would believe in nobody from the South Side over me?
I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He knew.
Carson leaned back, signaling Ricci with a nod. That's when they moved.
Before I could react, Ricci grabbed my wrist under the table while Lupo shoved something hard and cold against my side. A gun. In a bar. In public. But no one around us flinched. No one noticed. This wasn't just a bar. It was a cover.
I told you to be grateful, Carson said, his voice quiet but dripping with menace. But you got greedy. You got curious. In curiosity?
He paused, letting the gun press deeper into my ribs.
It gets people killed.
Look, I said, trying to keep my voice steady.
I haven't gone to anyone. I still have the files. I haven't shared them.
But you could, he replied, and that's enough. The bar owner reappeared then, this time with purpose. He moved fast, his hand behind the bar reaching for something. I heard a click. Not a gun. A switch. The lights in the back corner of the bar flickered, and suddenly a hidden door creaked open near the emergency exit. I hadn't noticed it before. The bar owner gave me a sharp look and mouthed,
What the? I didn't hesitate.
I elbowed Ricci hard, enough to break his grip, and flipped the table. Glass shattered. Lupo stumbled, grabbing for the gun again, but I was already moving. I sprinted toward the hidden door as shots rang out behind me. Patrons screamed. The piano player dove for cover. Bottles exploded behind the bar. The bar owner grabbed my arm and shoved me through the secret exit. Run, he barked. Don't stop. Head through the alley. Lose them.
Why are you helping me? I yelled as we ran.
Because your boss is too stupid to realize he's playing with wolves.
And you?
He looked at me. You're the bait. We burst into the alley, our shoes skidding on wet pavement. I could still hear Carson shouting behind us, cursing the bar owner, the Mafia guys, and probably me. Sirens echoed in the distance. Someone must have called the cops. Or maybe that was part of Carson's plan too, get me arrested instead of killed. But none of that mattered right then. All I could focus on was staying ahead of them, staying alive. After a few blocks, we ducked into a delivery entrance behind the diner. The bar owner, whose name I still didn't know, locked the door behind us and handed me a burner phone. You got one chance, kid, he said. Whoever you're working for, whoever you trust, assume they're compromised. If Carson wants you dead, you need to disappear.
I can't, I said, panting. I have the files. I need to expose him.
He shook his head. Then you better make damn sure you survive long enough to do it. The next 72 hours of my life blurred into a storm of paranoia, adrenaline, and sleeplessness. After escaping through the alley with the help of the bar owner, who finally told me his name was Sal, I didn't go home. I couldn't. I ditched my phone, wiped my laptop, and took a bus 3 cities over to a cheap motel that smelled like mildew and old coffee. But even in that suffocating windowless room, I couldn't relax. Every car engine outside made me jump. Every knock on a neighboring door made my heart stop. I kept replaying Carson's words over and over in my head.
Do you think the partners would believe a nobody from the South Side over me?
He was right. If I just waltzed into Thornwell and Price with my USB stick and a righteous speech, I'd be laughed out the building, or worse, black bad before I reached the elevator. But I wasn't ready to give up either.
That file on my USB drive? It was damning.
Tens of millions of dollars have been funneled into shell corporations linked to foreign accounts registering fake names, but with real routing numbers. The kind of laundering that crossed international boundaries and could bury a dozen people if it ever saw daylight.
Carson wasn't just stealing. He was laundering money for dangerous men. And I was the idiot who stumbled into it.
I needed help, real help. Someone with access, resources, and most importantly, a reason to hate Carson as much as I did.
That's when I thought of Natalie.
She used to work at Thornwell and Price as head of internal compliance. Smart, sharp, and the only one who ever looked Carson in the eye and didn't flinch. She also got mysteriously let go 6 months ago, right after she submitted an internal report about financial irregularities. The rumors said she'd been paid off or blackballed.
But I remembered how furious she looked the day she cleaned out her office. That wasn't someone who'd been bought. That was someone betrayed. I still had her personal number.
It took 3 burner phones and 1 encrypted email account, but I finally got in touch. We met at a library in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. She showed up in dark glasses and a hoodie, scanning every corner like someone who had clearly been burned before.
"Daniel Rios," she said, sitting down without a greeting. "I figured you'd be dead by now." "Nice to see you too." She smirked. "I feel worse." I slid the USB across the table, wrapped in a coffee-stained napkin. "I found something. Carson tried to have me killed."
She arched an eyebrow, opened her laptop, and plugged in the drive. As she clicked through the files, her smirk slowly faded.
"Holy shit." "Yeah," I said. "That's about the size of it."
She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "Do you know what this is?"
"I know it's illegal."
"It's more than illegal," she said. "This is federal prison for anyone tied to it. Carson, the partners, maybe even the board. If this leaks, hell, if this even makes it to the right reporter, this company doesn't survive. Thornwell and Price will be finished."
I leaned forward. "So what do we do?"
She hesitated, thinking. "You need proof that links it to Carson directly. Wire transfers from his account, meeting logs, emails, a chain of custody. This?" She tapped the drive. "This is a loaded gun, but you still need to aim it."
"I can't get back into the system. My badge has probably been deactivated."
Natalie smirked. "Mine hasn't. They never revoked my admin credentials."
I blinked. "Seriously?"
She nodded. "Carson's ego works in our favor. He thought I was too scared to do anything. Never changed the passwords. Probably assumed I'd just fade away."
"So what's the plan?"
She glanced around, then leaned closer. "We break into the office. Tonight." That night, around midnight, we parked in the underground garage of Thornwell and Price's downtown headquarters. The building was quiet, skeleton crew only. Security was lax, probably because Carson had always believed the real threats came from the outside, never from his own people. Natalie used her old keycard and credentials to access the executive floor. We stuck to the shadows, passing empty cubicles and flickering hallway lights. It felt surreal being back. Just days ago, I was chained to one of these desks, just another cog in the machine.
Now I was here to destroy it.
We reached Carson's office. Natalie picked a lock on his private cabinet while I booted up his computer using her override credentials.
What exactly are we looking for? I whispered.
Emails, offshore instructions, meeting schedules, anything that connects him to the wire transfers.
Got it.
We worked in silence. Every creak of the building, every flicker of the motion sensors made my chest tighten. I kept imagining Lupo and Ricci bursting through the glass doors, guns raised.
But then I found it.
An email thread between Carson and someone named Dee Morrow discussing compensation for risk, cash movement routes, and a coded spreadsheet that matched the exact figures I had flagged on my USB. Natalie leaned over my shoulder. Domenico Morrow. He's one of the underbosses in the Lugiano syndicate, known for laundering through private equity.
Bingo.
She downloaded everything onto a second drive. We need to go. Now. We made it back to the elevator just as the lobby lights flickered on, and we froze.
Carson. Standing in the elevator.
His eyes locked on me, then on Natalie. His face went from confusion to realization in a heartbeat.
You.
I didn't wait. I lunged for the stairwell. Natalie was right behind me. He shouted something. I couldn't hear what, but I heard the elevator doors slam shut as we sprinted down 5 flights. We burst into the garage and dove into the car. Natalie peeled out of the lot as Carson's furious silhouette appeared in the building's front window.
We had the proof. But now he knew we were coming.
The sun hadn't even risen, and I was already a wanted man in Carson's eyes. By dawn, his reach would stretch across police stations, corporate headquarters, and probably the back pockets of every news anchor and judge he could pay off.
But this time I had leverage.
Natalie and I holed up in a safe house owned by one of her old contacts in corporate fraud enforcement, an ex-auditor named Malik, who'd been forced out years ago for refusing to falsify a client's books. A man with nothing left to lose and an axe to grind. The perfect ally. Malik helped us sift through the files, validating each one. He even uncovered things we had missed: offshore payments masked as consulting fees, land purchases through dummy buyers, and accounts in the Caymans under alias names, all circling back to Carson. "You're not just sitting on fraud," Malik said, tapping the screen. "You're sitting on a criminal empire. This is RICO-level stuff."
Then let's take him down, I said. But it wasn't that easy.
Carson didn't just have money. He had muscle, influence, judges in his pocket. He could smear my name, paint me as a bitter ex-employee, or worse, claim I forged the documents. Even with the truth, the burden of proof would fall on me.
Unless I did something drastic. We needed to make Carson panic. Make him expose himself. So I baited him.
That morning, I sent him a message from a ghost email account he couldn't trace.
Subject line, still breathing. I'm going public. TikTok, Carson. I didn't attach anything. Didn't say where I was. But I knew him well enough to know he'd go ballistic. Sure enough, 2 hours later, Natalie's burner phone buzzed. It was an anonymous number. "Where are you?" Carson's voice hissed through the speaker. "Let's talk, Daniel. Like men." "You tried to have me killed," I replied calmly. "Men don't do that." "Everything you think you have, it won't matter. I'll bury it. I'll bury you." "You sound nervous," I said. A pause. "And then you want to make this right? Meet me. Tonight, just us." I smirked. That was the Carson I needed. Arrogant, overconfident, and desperate to regain control. Where? Pier 19. After midnight. No games. I hung up. Malik looked at me like I'd lost my mind. You're going to meet him? Not exactly, I said. We're going to make sure everyone sees him. We had less than 12 hours.
Natalie reached out to a friend in the press, an investigative journalist named Karina West, whose specialty was exposing corporate corruption. She was skeptical at first, until we showed her the files. By the time we were done, her hands were shaking. This is bigger than I imagined, she whispered. This could blow up the whole financial sector. Will you publish it? I asked. Not just publish, she said. We'll stream it live. You'll confront him and we'll record everything. The plan was simple. I'd meet Carson at the pier wearing a hidden mic and camera. Karina would have a van nearby with live feed equipment. If Carson confessed, even hinted at the crimes, it would go straight to her editor and be broadcast before we could stop it. By the time night fell, I was wired and walking toward the foggy dock. The cold air stung my skin. The waves slapped lazily against the wooden planks. Everything smelled like salt and danger. Carson was already there, wearing a coat that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Alone. Or so I thought. You came, he said, like we were meeting for coffee. I want to end this, I said. I walk away, you let me live. That's the deal. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're not walking away with anything, Rios. You were always just a pawn. And you were always a coward, I shot back. His nostrils flared, but he kept calm. You think this is justice? A few emails and bank statements? You think that scares me? You know how many people I own? You don't own me. You were never more than a liability. From the day you walked into my office with your thrift store tie and puppy dog eyes, I knew you'd snap one day. You just needed the right push. So that's why you sent thugs after me? I asked. Lupo and Ricci? You know they shot up a bar? His jaw tightened. They were a warning. Then you should have sent a bullet, I said. Because now you're going to prison. That's when he lost it. You think this ends with me? He snapped. This goes higher than you can imagine. The partners, the board. Half the people funding this city are in my pocket. I own the system. And that was it. A confession. Natalie's voice crackled in my earpiece. We got it. Every word. I smiled at Carson. Thanks for playing. He froze. His eyes darted past me, spotting the unmarked van at the end of the pier. Then realization hit him like a freight train. You. A spotlight from the van lit up the dock. Karina stepped out with her phone held high. Smile for the people, Carson. You're live. He lunged for me, but two figures emerged from the shadows, Malik and a former security officer Natalie trusted. They pinned him to the ground before he could do anything. Seconds later, flashing red and blue lights filled the sky. Cops. Real ones. The kind Carson hadn't bought yet. They cuffed him while he screamed threats into the night, yelling about lawyers and lawsuits and how nothing would stick. But it would. Because now the world was watching. The fallout was nuclear. Thornwell and Price collapsed within days. The FBI raided every floor. Every corrupt partner was named in the files. Multiple arrests, civil suits, frozen accounts. Even the Luciano family distanced themselves publicly to avoid exposure. As for Carson, he was hit with 23 felony charges: fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, attempted murder. His trial became the biggest corporate scandal of the decade. And me? I walked away. Not with money, not with fame, but with my name intact. Natalie started her own compliance firm. Malik went back into consulting. And me? I went home to the south side, took some time off, got clean, reconnected with my mom, slept through the night for the first time in months.
And sometimes when I walk past a TV in the grocery store and see Carson's mugshot plastered on the screen, I smile. Because the truth still matters, even if you have to fight through hell to prove it.
3 weeks after Carson's arrest, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Not just the kind of breath you take between steps or while waiting for a microwave to ding. I mean the deep, chest-caving, soul-loosening breath that only comes when the storm is over and you're still standing. For the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't surviving, I was living. I stayed off the grid for a while. The media frenzy was overwhelming. Reporters camped outside my mom's house. Old college classmates I hadn't heard from in years suddenly messaged me like we were best friends. "Hey man, saw you on the news. Crazy stuff. Want to grab a beer?" "No thanks." I didn't want the attention. I didn't want a book deal or some self-righteous spotlight. All I ever wanted was to do my job, earn my keep, and sleep at night with a clear conscience. Somehow that had become a revolutionary act.
But still, there was unfinished business.
I met with Karina again a month after the story broke. She'd become something of a media icon. Her piece had gone viral across every major outlet. She won awards, but she never forgot who made it possible. "People are calling you a hero," she said, sipping black coffee across from me at a quiet cafe on the north side.
I shook my head. I'm not. You exposed one of the biggest financial crime rings in the last 10 years. I just didn't want to die, I said with a dry smile. She chuckled. Sometimes survival is heroism.
She offered me a deal, consult on her next expose. High-level government fraud, deep pockets, dangerous terrain. It was tempting, but I said no.
Why? She asked.
Because I'm not that guy, I replied. I spent years hiding behind spreadsheets. When I finally stood up, the world nearly crushed me for it. I don't want to chase corruption for a living. I want to build something honest.
So I did.
I reached out to Natalie and Malik with an idea, a non-profit financial integrity firm. We trained whistleblowers, consult companies that wanted to run clean, and help communities understand the systems they were forced to trust blindly. We'd name it Veritas Finance.
To my surprise, they both said yes immediately.
You don't get chances like this twice, Malik told me over the phone. We have momentum. Let's make it count. Natalie even put up the seed money. Turns out she'd been saving for a rainy day, and our entire saga had been a Category 5 hurricane. By year's end, we had a small office, a team of 5, and more than a dozen small firms seeking our services.
That's when something unexpected happened.
One evening, while sorting through client documents, our receptionist knocked on my door. "There's someone here to see you," she said hesitantly. "Says you know him."
I stepped into the lobby and froze. Sal, the bar owner?
He looked just as I remembered. Crooked nose, tired eyes, a permanent frown carved into his weathered face. But this time, there was a quiet softness behind his expression. Something like,
"I heard you were doing good things," he said simply. "I'm trying."
He handed me a folded newspaper clipping. An article about Carson's sentencing. 35 years without parole.
"I wanted to see that with my own eyes," Sal said. I nodded. "You saved my life, you know."
He shrugged. Didn't feel like much at the time. Just did what was right.
That's more than most.
He looked around the office, noticed our cramped desks, the wall of case files, the coffee maker that never worked right. "Feels honest," he said.
That's the goal.
He nodded slowly, then turned to leave. But before he stepped out, he said something that stuck with me. "You had every reason to run, but you stood and fought. That's rare. That matters." I didn't say anything. I just watched him walk into the late afternoon sun, disappearing like a ghost from another chapter of my life. By spring, Veritas Finance had expanded. We were taking on bigger clients. More courageous employees were reaching out from corporations, schools, even hospitals. We weren't just fixing systems. We were teaching people how to stand up inside them.
But even with our growing impact, I never forgot how it started.
There's something I think about a lot now. That moment in the bar when Sal looked me in the eyes and said, "Your lives are in danger." He didn't owe me anything. He didn't know me. But he still chose to speak, to warn, to do something.
And because of that, I'm still here.
It made me realize sometimes it only takes one moment of courage, just one, to change someone's entire life.
So that's what I try to do now. Give people the courage to take that one moment, the first step. Because once you take it, there's no going back. And that's a good thing.
People still ask me if I'd do it again. If I knew Carson would try to kill me, if I knew I'd lose my job, be hunted, nearly lose everything, would I still expose the truth?
I always answer the same way. Yes. Because I gained more than I lost. I found my voice. I found allies. I found a purpose. And most importantly, I found out who I really was when everything else was stripped away. Not just a numbers guy, not just an underdog from the South Side, but a survivor, a fighter, a builder. My name is Daniel Rios. And I'm not afraid anymore.